There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you in part by the generosity of our friends at the Cockrell Family Foundation, the Bergman family, and the Sherman Family Foundation. Thank you.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to another edition of There's Just Something About Kansas City. Don't forget, like, listen, subscribe, and I think today is one of those days you might want to watch us on YouTube, okay? Because we have a very, very special show for you. I am dressed like this for a reason. We are about ready to head to the Flint Hills of Kansas, okay, down to Cottonwood Falls, Kansas, and talk about one of the most unique events in the entire country and the most unique event that I have ever had the privilege of going to, and that was a symphony in the Flint Hills. And we're going to go now down to Cottonwood Falls and talk to Kelly Tastove, the operations and donor relations manager for Symphony in Flint Hills. And Kelly, number one, welcome. But number two, it just breaks my heart that this is the 20th and final symphony in the Flint Hills. Now, might be a big burden off of your back because you have to do everything, but it just breaks my heart that it has to come to an end.
We've done this for 20 years, and that's a pretty good goal to achieve with everything that happens out there and all the infrastructure that we have to put up. So we're excited that we've been able to do it for this long, but the organization is going to continue on. So the Symphony in the Flint Hills organization will continue on. It'll be in some kind of a different format. My board is working very hard to figure out what that future looks like. But in the meantime, we're just going to celebrate this party out on the prairie where we soak in the tallgrass prairie and just enjoy all that it has to offer.
Yeah, that was, in fact, Ben Messner, who is running our operation here at Marquee Creative, as the first thing he asked me, he said, well, I'm sure somebody's going to come along and pick this up again because it was so popular. And I'm going, well, I don't know. I said, the logistics are, unless you've gone and seen exactly what goes into this, the logistics are a nightmare for the Symphony of Flint Hills. But that really gives me some hope that this will continue on in some form.
Yes, it will. And I have to say, I totally appreciate you understanding and focusing on those logistics, because you're right, they're a nightmare. But somehow we pull it off. And there's a lot of people, we get the question that how long it takes us to plan this. Well, it's year-round planning plus. So we're always working on the next one while we're doing the current one. So that's a little bit different this year, where we're going to do something, where we know we're not going to do it like this in a year from now. So we can focus on really making sure we knock it out of the park this year. We try every single year to make sure that happens for everybody and they enjoy themselves out there. The only thing that we worry a little bit about is Mother Nature and that weather. So we like her to be our partner, and we hope she works with us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've been there. My wife and I have been there 5 times. And we only got weathered out the one year. Remember when it blew was that the tornado year, I think, or
it was a microburst. It was 2019. That's the only year that we had to cancel it due to weather. So we did 19 was that, and then in 2020 was the pandemic. So of course we didn't have it then either. But and then we had another weather incident in 22 where we just had to stop it at intermission. So, and then send everybody to their cars a little early.
Right. So for the people who don't understand what is happening here, you put it on a ranch every year, different ranch every year. Thank God for the farmers or the rancher who lets you use their land. You have to understand that we're bringing the entire Kansas City Symphony, everybody involved, sometimes as many as 100-member chorus or a singer, to participate as well. You got to put up a shell, a band shell. You've got to get the chairs out. You've got to have a hillside where the chairs are going to sit, and the band shell sits down in the valley. Talk a little bit about that and about the Ranchers Cooperation and how this, just talk about how this idea ever spawned in somebody's brain to bring the symphony to the middle of the tallgrass prairie in Cottonwood Falls, Kansas.
Well, I think it was in 1994. A local rancher by the name of Jane Koger decided she wanted to throw herself a birthday party out on her ranch. And she had this specific spot that she went out there every year. And she just, in her mind, as she was out there appreciating the beauty of the prairie, she just heard a symphony. And so she thought, well, I'm just going to invite the whole county out, and I'm going to bring a symphony out, and we're going to enjoy this. That was the original back in 1994 by Jane Koger. We always kind of give her the title of being our godmother for this. So she had the idea, and then it wasn't until 2006 that we actually had the very first symphony in the Flint Hills. And it took them, they started in 2004 planning for it, and it took them 2 years to put that first one on by the time they figured out what infrastructure they were going to need. The organization is a 501c3 nonprofit, so that meant that there was a bunch of fundraising that needed to be done. They needed to figure out how to sell general admission tickets, in addition to patrons and sponsors to help with the funding. Then there's the whole other gamut of volunteers. So we have about anywhere from 400 to 600 volunteers over the years. We've narrowed it down. We're at the lower end of that number now because we've become more efficient to figure out what volunteers teams that we need. We have about 25 different volunteer teams. We have chair rental, ticket takers, people in the food tents cleaning up the tables, people sitting out chairs in the amphitheater, and then the trash team also. And all these volunteers just work their tails off all day long to help us put on this event. And we can't do it without it. We can't do it without the volunteers. We can't do it without the donors. The people that come together to help us do this, it's just their dedication to the organization is unmatched. So yeah, and then it's just all this comes together, and the whole, working with the Kansas City Symphony to create the music program, the education tents that go on throughout the day. There's 4 to 5 tents at every event, and every 30 minutes there's a different presentation in each of those, and it talks about the tallgrass prairie. We talk about conservation. We talk about fire and why burning the prairie is important to sustaining it. We also always have a theme every year for the particular place that we're showcasing that year, the ranch that we're on, and we talk about that. We talk about the history of the ranch. These presentation tents have taken on a life of their own, that they're full all throughout the day. People come to learn about the tallgrass prairie, and we always hope that we can pique your interest, and then you'll leave and you'll do more on your own to learn about it and what it has to offer, and why it's important to bring attention to it so that it's here for years to come.
Right. Now, I want to let the people know just history, and we're talking about now ancient history. I think the Flint Hills, 280 million years old. And this area where the Flint Hills was an area of the country that wasn't on the maps back in the late 17 and early 1800s until the settlers started going. In fact, everything west of the Missouri River and east of the Rocky Mountains was sort of referred to as the Great American Desert, because people really didn't know what was there because nobody had been there. And the Flint Hills at that time and way back in the day, they stretched from, they were in Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and, eastern, north, and south Dakota, Nebraska, East Texas, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So from the northern Midwest all the way to the Southwest, the Flint Hills spread that big an area, 167 million acres. So it was an incredible sea of tall prairie grass, untouched, no trees. If there are trees there now, they're because they were brought in by the settlers. So the area itself is so historic and so meaningful, isn't it?
Yeah, so the Flint Hills of Kansas. So this used to be an inland sea, and the tallgrass prairie stretched from Canada down to Mexico. And part of the reason that the Flint Hills survived like what we have is it's difficult for the farming industry to take over here as far as they can't plow because of the inland sea and the flint rock that they hit. So that's why it's so good for grazing and for all the cattle that we have that are run through here. So the last of the tallgrass prairie that stretched from Canada to Mexico, the last 3 to 4% of it is right here in the Kansas Flint Hills.
Right. And you're trying to preserve that for
Mhm.
future generations. I know I think you have about 100,000 acres right now. They're preserved in certain areas. And I think you're looking, try to expand that almost 10 times to try to get more of a preservation area over a bigger area, correct?
I'm going to take your word for that on those
Okay.
numbers.
I think that's what they're trying to do. Okay. So if we go back to, what we're thinking about here and how this all came about, the symphony in the Flint Hills and what they're trying to do, and these ranchers opening up their ranches to
Mhm.
uh to do this, and
Yeah.
the money that is donated, and
Yes.
and and all that money that goes to that as well. So that
Yeah.
is, it's all about education.
We've had some very generous landowners that have been willing to work with us over the years. Like I said, this is the 20th year. We have, and it's in a new place every year for the most part. There's, in those 20 years, there's maybe three, possibly four sites that we've repeated. And when we repeat a site, it's never sooner than 4 to 5 years because we like to give the prairie time to recuperate after we've
Right.
been out there. Um, the amount of time that we're actually out at the site is pretty minimal, but it's pretty intense. We don't start setting any tents up and doing any of the infrastructure more than 3 weeks prior, 3 to 4 weeks prior, and that's going out there and making sure that we have good access to it. Sometimes we have to haul gravel out there to make sure that we can get the equipment out there to set the tents up and everything. And then the time that it takes us after the event to tear down everything, get it off the land, we're out of there within 10 days after the event is over. There's really no sign that we were ever there. So it's like I said, it's a really intense, short amount of time. We get everything in place so we can get out there and we can get it set up. Working with our vendors, our tent companies, you know, they've worked with us forever. Kansas City Symphony has been a partner of ours from the very beginning. When this whole thing, I'm kind of jumping around. Sorry.
That's okay. This
when
is
this
great
whole
information.
when this whole thing started back in 2006, um, we went to a couple different symphonies to see who was willing to work with us, and it was the Kansas City Symphony. They were the only ones that were willing to, I guess, take the risk to do this outdoor event out in the middle of nowhere, and they have been our partner ever since. They understand what we're trying to do. They've been a great partner, and I can't imagine getting to work with anybody else over this task that we've taken on.
Yeah, and I've seen the symphony obviously here as well at
Mhm.
the Kaufman Center, and I've seen musicians after it's over. They all come out and they're all intermingling with the public after a concert or whatever. And I've asked everyone that I have ever met. I said, "Have you been part of the symphony when it was a symphony of Flint Hills?" They just light up and they just go. It even for them to perform and have the talent that they have, they light up and just say that is the most incredible experience of my life as well. So it's really meaningful to them, and it's obvious when they're there because of what they do and how they perform and everything that goes on.
Yeah, it's such a good feel when you're out there because everybody from the orchestra players to all of those volunteers I was speaking of and all of the attendees, the ticket holders, everybody has that feel. It's a feel of camaraderie, and you're all out there to enjoy this day. You're out there to appreciate the tallgrass prairie, the viewscape that you get to soak in while you're spending this day out on the prairie with your hat and your bug spray and your sunscreen. You're all out there, and it's so inspiring to just soak it all in. The Kansas City Symphony, I just can't say enough good things about them, and our relationship that we've had with them, and for them sticking with this for 20 years, because it's not easy. It's not an air conditioned, Kaufman Center. It's out in the elements. So
and I
appreciate
remember
that.
right. And I remember my wife saying, okay, let's load up the stuff. We're going to get a cooler. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We need the bug spray. We need blankets to put down on the ground. And I'm thinking, and I've never been, and I'm thinking, what in God's name are we doing in the middle of a prairie with bug spray and a blanket? And then after I experienced it, I said, now I know. Now I
Yeah.
know why. And
I
it
appreciate
is,
you saying that, because,
yeah.
I have people that call the office and they're first timers. They've never gone, and I can tell you all about it. I can describe the day, and I can get into the details of it. And then I always finish the conversation by saying, but you don't get it until you experience it. It's
Right.
just one of those things. We can tell you all the details that are going to happen throughout that day, but you just won't understand it until you're out there, experience it yourself.
Yeah, right. And I'm glad there is a hint here that it will continue on in some form as well. And I think
Mhm.
that's very important. But I can remember sitting on that hillside and listening to the symphony, and a couple of times it was Copeland's
Yeah.
music, and it was the Magnificent Seven, and it was Dances with Wolves, and then it was a little bit of Star Wars with the Ad Astra
Yeah.
part of that theme, and it was the music and the panoramic scene as you look out over the Flint Hills in the sun setting. I mean, there's no way the cowboys driving the cattle across the back of the shell at exactly the right moment when the music crescendos. I mean, it's giving me goosebumps right now. Just, just, and you can't describe it, because when I come back from it and I try to tell people, and they just sit there and they'll nod their heads. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, fine, that sounds great. But
I'm glad that you brought up the Cowboys. Yeah, the cattle drive. We have a cattle drive every year. Well, it didn't start at the very beginning. It started in about year 3, I think it was, where we started doing the cattle drive across the backdrop of the band shell in the background, and it's always a crowd pleaser. Yeah, we can't. That gives you all the feels when you're out there and you're seeing that. And you got 300 to 500 head of cattle, and you've got these Flint Hills cowboys and cowgirls that this is their daily life. This is what they do every day. This is how they earn their living. And then they're out there and they give you guys, the audience, a little bit of a taste of what they get to enjoy every day.
yeah,
And
and
they hope that the cattle behave properly.
yeah, right. Well, sometimes they don't, but that's
That's
cattle.
true, but you're not supposed to know that.
They're just like the weather. You can't count on the cattle to obey orders. Okay, that is part of it, but that's part of the allure of it as well.
Yeah.
Just it's just all those things, and the fact that you're watching something, those modern day cowboys and cowgirls out there driving cattle. You're watching the modern day of what it was like on this tall grass prairie back in the 1800s. This is what they did. In fact, I've been I went horseback riding for the first time in my life was about 5 years ago. It was on the Hoy Ranch down
Oh,
in down there in the down near the tall grass prairie on their ranch. And it is that was a first for me as well. Kid from Pittsburgh on top of a horse for the first time in his life in his 60s. And you're just going, oh my God, what am I doing up here? What am I
yeah,
doing?
I'm not going to let you be on a horse out there at the symphony.
No,
Sorry.
no, 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 I know. Don't worry. I'm not even asking for that. And then I was in a stagecoach. I'm sorry,
Oh,
not
yep.
stagecoach. I was in a covered wagon for the first time in my life. Also at the Symphony of Flint Hills, they offer these rides. They offer education. There's much more to it than just the symphony and the program they're playing that day. That's part of it. But people get there at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Symphony doesn't start till about 7:30 right in there so they can time the sunset at the exact same time. There's so much more to do there than just listen, which would be a wonderful experience in its own right, but just
Yep.
listen to the symphony.
Yeah, the gates open, the ticket gate opens at 1 o'clock, and there's activities all afternoon. Like I said, we have the presentation tents with all the different um, education talks that go on throughout the day. We have guided prairie walks that they'll take you out throughout the grassland and the site that we're on, and they can tell you everything about all the different plants that are growing. The outright we do roping with the outriders, where they teach you how to throw a lasso, and there's roving music. We have food and beverage on site for purchase.
Right. You have
There's
the arts. You have a lot of
We
stuff
have
about
the
the arts as
art.
well. Mhm.
We have an art a juried art show that goes along with the each event. So beginning, we're my email keeps popping up here where artists are entering our juried art show. So the deadline for that is coming up on February 28th, I believe it is. And you can enter a painting, up to 2 paintings, and they will be juried. And the ones that make the cut then will go into an online auction. And the online auction closes down the Tuesday after the signature event. So
Yeah,
June
right. About
16th,
middle of
17th,
June.
something like that.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, and these pieces are gorgeous. Our art shows are always very popular. We'll have uh, the art will be on display here in our office in Cottonwood Falls in our gallery from April, May, and through May and June, mid-June.
Right. Right.
And
And
I encourage you to, if you're in Cottonwood Falls area, to come down and look at it. We'll have it all online. We work with KC Auction out of Kansas City, and he'll have it all online, and you can do your bidding there. But you can get some beautiful pieces of Flint Hills art through that online auction.
right. And also I remember the stargazing. It's the middle of the day, sun's out.
Yes.
And he says, yeah, you want to look at the sun? And I go,
Yes.
what? He said, you want to look at the sun? He said, yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. And they have the specific telescopes
Yeah.
to handle that. And then when the concert is over, they have entertainment afterwards as well. If you don't, if you don't want to get started for your car at that point, that's
Yeah.
another part of this we'll talk about later. But the deal is, if you want to stay around, let the parking lot clear out. I know you limit it to 7,500 people. The sales begin on March 1st at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And it will be, and they will go on sale until they're sold out, and they always sell out. So,
Well,
get
no,
there.
no, that's kind of a misconception.
Oh,
In the
really?
early
Okay.
years, they always sold out, and they sold out very quickly. So yes, we typically always sell out, but people think that it happens in an instant. And in the early years, it did. Now it takes usually a couple months before all those
Oh,
tickets
okay.
are gone. So we're saying this is the year of no excuses, because we hear people say that well, I tried to get a ticket. Well, no, you didn't, because I'm the one that sells the tickets. So
That's right. You're fibbing
so
on
if
me
you
here.
want a ticket, you can go onto our website, which is symphonyintheflinthills.org, or you can call the office here and we can help you out. But tickets, yeah, it takes us a couple of months to sell those tickets, and yeah, there's no excuse to not go, because
Yeah.
the tickets are available. There's always about 7,500 people on site. You're right. But yeah, back to those after concert activities. We always have back to the telescopes, the stargazing. It's through these huge, high-powered telescopes, and if it's a clear night, which typically, we've been really lucky that we usually do get those clear nights out there. It's just amazing. It's amazing the view that you can see through them. You can see all Saturn's rings, the view of the moon, and all the planets and stars that they show you. It's just gorgeous. Everybody should stop and take that in. And then the knowledge of those that are showing us, helping us out with those telescopes, and they're anxious to share and eager to share what they know about everything. It's just fun to listen to them and to let them share their knowledge with us. Then we'll have an after concert dance band. This year we're very excited because we have contracted with Logan Mize, who is a Kansas native recording artist, and he's going to do the after concert dance band. He's also going to sing Home on the Range with the Kansas City Symphony at the end of the concert. So we're really excited with that too. He's worked with the Kansas tourism. So he's got a video out there where he did Home on the Range for them at an opera house here in Kansas. And I can't remember which opera house it was, but it's gorgeous. He's also shared with us that the symphony in the Flint Hills is also on his bucket list. So this is a bucket list item for many people, and we just want to help everybody check that one off. So right. Join us this year.
Yeah, I tell all the people I know, and certainly native Kansans, I said, I'll say, have you ever been to a symphony in Flint Hills? They'll go, no. I say, you're a Kansan. I say, there is no reason for you to miss this event, which is so unique to this part of the country and just special. And I've told everybody I know, I said, hey, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Come on. And I've been down here 5 times. My gosh, you have to know I'm an old curmudgeon. So for something to appeal to me this much, that sounds like with the bug spray and the blankets and the stuff like that, not to be so much, I said, you've got to experience this at least once in your lifetime. So it is absolutely incredible. And you sort of skipped over this fact, and I'll bring it back to this. I think this was women made. Okay. This concert and this series for the last 20 years with you and people like you and Senator Nancy Kassebaum, and you go back to the governor, Kathleen Sebelius, and all this, you all got together and really made this happen to make this a signature event in the state of Kansas. And I think that's important to know what you have done.
Yeah, well, so going back even further to Jane Coger, who I said it was her original idea way back when to do something like this. And when she did that first time in 1994, it was an all-women orchestra that she had out there. We have a very small staff here at Symphony in the Flint Hills. There's only 4 employees, and it's all women. Not that just kind of happened that way. But yeah, Kathleen Sebelius, Nancy Kassebaum, they were huge in getting helping us out to start this. Nancy Kassebaum, and getting the tallgrass prairie, the park here in Chase County near Strong City. She was an integral part of that. And so we have her to thank for that. She's also been very involved with our organization. She's a big supporter of ours. And we gave her special recognition when we had our 10th anniversary. So yeah, there's the people that support us. Yeah, we're very lucky to have them in our corner, and we don't take that for granted. And we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah. And again, it's another one of those Midwest giving things too. People here are very generous, and when they believe in something, they certainly get behind it.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, exactly. And just to let people know how tough this is to put on. Okay. We're talking about here, you're going into the middle of a ranch, 10,000 acre ranch, maybe larger in some cases, and just try to find a nice site. And then from that point on, you're talking about power, sound system, weather, parking, restrooms, refreshments. This was such a wild concept from the beginning. Was there ever a part just before you put this on that you're there maybe in 2005 planning and 2006 early and going, can we really get this done? I mean, is this really feasible?
It's probably good, when you do something for the first time, you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. That's probably a good thing in this instance. So the very first event in 2006, they were thinking, we can do this with 150 volunteers. They quickly figured out that was not the case. And that first year, I think they had between 600 and 700 volunteers before they figured out to get everything going as we needed to. Um, the yeah, we have the porta potties, the tent company, the food and beverage, getting all that out there and getting it set up and in a working order. We also have a lot of communication that goes on with our local county government. We need to make sure that we're all on board with, the roads and making sure they're accessible to handle not only the 7,000 attendees, but the semis that are hauling the tents out there, because these are remote areas. Sometimes it's minimum maintenance roads. So we have to make sure that is working to where we can carry all the supplies out there that we need to.
Yeah,
So
right.
we try to communicate well with our local county governments and want to just make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to make it as easy as we can for them, because this is not easy to put on, but we don't want to make it any harder than what it needs to be.
Right. Yeah, and the shell has to come in on a tractor trailer. Then you have about 70 or 80 box trucks, and then all of a sudden you're out there in the tent trap, and you don't see any trucks. There's nothing there, so they all leave.
Yeah.
All right, and then
Yeah.
they wait till it's over. I guess the next day's a Sunday, so they're not there. I don't know if they're there then, but by Monday they come in, they take everything up and gone. And that's why you have to let that land settle for a while before you would ever bring it back there. And sometimes that's why you don't want to bring it back to the same site. You've only done it like 4 times or so, but you don't want to bring it back same type because there is some wear and tear on it. And I think Jim and Kathy Hoy have had tremendous influence on this. Of course, Jim, longtime professor at Emporia State University, and I think he described the Flint Hills better than anybody I've ever heard. He said the Flint Hills don't take your breath away; they give you a chance to catch it, and that is the most appropriate thing. Like, you might be in the Rockies or the Himalayas and have this mountain vista view that just like that. Here it is. It's like there's such a calming influence in the Flint Hills.
Yeah, and you're right. Jim and Kathy were huge in this organization. They both served on the board. They both were the board chair at one point or another. And Jim still writes he does a piece in our field journal every year, and he typically does a presentation on site every year as well. We had when you go through the field journals, and every single one of them, you're going to find a story written by Jim Hoy. Their heart and soul is in this land and this landscape, and this has been their passion, and Jim's influence at ESU and on his students. You just can't help but understand his love of the tallgrass prairie and the Flint Hills.
Yeah, right. And the idea, I think anybody that would visit and go to the Flint Hills, and you can see the big on the rock outside Manhattan. It says, welcome to the Flint Hills, but you don't understand until you get down into the Cottonwood Falls and Strong Cities and Marion, Kansas, and all those areas to really experience what it is. And to get out to do an event like this, or to stay on somebody's property and ride horses through this tall grass and understand exactly what this is all about. And, for me, it has always been, it really has influenced me as well. Old East Coast kid. And it has just been wonderful. But I wonder for you, who lives there, and sometimes when we live in places like that, we can't see the forest for the trees. What are your thoughts about tallgrass prairie, the Flint Hills, and that area in the state of Kansas?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. So I was born and raised here. So I live at Bazaar, Kansas. Got to put Bazaar on the map because a lot of people have heard of it.
I've been there.
But so I graduate high school here locally, and I go off to college, and I'm a Kansas kid, and I just went off to Bethany College in Lindsborg. But, I'm meeting all these people for the first time, and I'm surrounded by, people from all over the world. And the attitude of Kansas is how flat Kansas is. And that was foreign to me. I didn't understand, because Kansas isn't flat. I don't know what you're talking about, because I know what they're talking about, but that's not the Kansas I know. So I never had that thought when I think of Kansas. So we got to get people to this section of it so they understand the beauty of it and what all it has to offer. I mean, these rolling green hills, I drive to work every day and I see them. And sometimes I just, like you said, I just have to stop and appreciate it because it's the forest for the trees type of thing. I don't want to ever forget how good we've got it here. And we do. It's beautiful.
Yeah, right. And you and your husband raised three boys.
Mm-hmm.
Are they all involved in the in the ranch or what you're doing there?
Well, when it comes, yes, they are. When it comes symphony time, I tell them it's all about mama. So,
I thought it was always about mama.
well, not as much as it is for about a month or so in there. As far as, like I said, we are a small staff here. There's four of us, and we all have our families that are involved with it,
Right.
and we can't do it without them. Because they're the people the closest to us. They understand how we all think, and getting things done around that time, we can't do it without our families. And I don't think there's any of us that would disagree with that. They all help us. We've all, our spouses and our kids all come back and help us put this thing on. So it's very family oriented, and it goes even beyond us. To the volunteers that we have, it's a reunion of sorts for them every
Right.
year, when they get back together and help us put this on, as well as those patrons and donors. We have the patrons and sponsors. We have a tent on site for them. And again, it's like a reunion every year in that tent. So it's, yeah, I go back to that word camaraderie. It's the feel of
Yeah.
it, and the feel of that we're providing this this event for people to put on for us to all to gather to have this same kind of feel, and we hopefully we walk away and just want to expand on that, and we want to learn more. That's what our ultimate goal is, to making everybody just even more aware than what they felt that day, just to have that feeling grow.
Yeah, right. And Bruce and Tina Breckenridge are very good friends of ours, so I know you
Yes,
know them very well. They've been
do.
very instrumental and very generous donors for the
Yes.
symphony in the Flint Hills and to your organization as well. Are all the boys involved in ranching?
No, no.
Okay.
My family is the ranching family. My husband's family is a family of mechanics. So
Others,
the amount of vehicles that I have at my house that are being rebuilt,
uh,
yeah, there's a
up on
lot.
blocks. We have a few on blocks in the
Hmm.
front yard or what?
Hmm. I think we
Okay.
have a 67 Camaro and a 58 Chevy pickup that are being rebuilt right now. And
That's absolutely perfect.
I'm on a need to know basis. So
Right. Well, we'll tell them to get them all fixed up, and then we'll raffle them off as you move forward for whatever this is going to morph into later. We'll get a big raffle, raffle off one of those refurbished vehicles. Okay, I think it'd be
well, I
a
do want
lot
to.
of fun.
I would be remiss if I didn't say yes. They are into the farming part of it as well. They help out every year. They're the guys that keep all the equipment running,
Oh yeah, you
and
need those.
with harvest and
Mhm.
hauling harvest to and from the elevator and such. So they're all part of that too. You know, we're the Midwest, so you
Right.
pitch in when help is needed. You do what you need to do.
Yeah, you bet. And you were talking about all the volunteers get together and they see each other probably once a year for this event. And it is like a big family. It's like back in the old days when everybody lived far out of town. Okay. Whether it was like a Dodge City, and they're tying their horses up and going in a bar and meeting people and coming in, maybe on Sunday or once a month to shop or whatever. It's a lot like that. It's a lot like
Yes.
that same thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so on January 29th, our volunteer application went live. So you can go on our website if you want to be a volunteer to apply. You can do that there, and we've already got around 120, I think, volunteers in, which is a good number for this stage of the game. It's
Sure.
probably the highest number we've ever had. So yeah, they're anxious to get back together, and a lot of the teams, they want to be on the same team, whether it be the trash team, whether it be the bartending team or the ticket taking team. they all want to be back to where they've worked before, because then they're around the same people and they get to know
Right.
them that much better. Catch up on the year and what's been going on.
Yeah, right. They just feel comfortable as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
really important. And so, Kelly, was there any thought in your mind? You went to school, you met all these people from all different parts of the world. Any part growing up that you wanted to get away from home? Did you want to go do something else and not come back to the tall grass prairie, or was it always just in your blood and you weren't going anywhere?
I think it was in my blood. This was home. This is where I wanted to be. Yeah, this is just, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be here.
You know what? Since being there, I agree with you. Okay. There's just something about Kansas City, and that is the theme of this. But you can get there from here, okay, with no problem. It's only an hour and 45 minutes probably away, or 2 hours at the most, just depending where you want to go. And I always encourage everybody, you got to go visit Tall Grass Prairie Preserve.
Yep.
And you got to go see what history is about, because if we lose our history, we lose everything. We just, lose who we really are. So I think that is, that's just incredible. And Kelly Tastove, thank you so much for joining us today. Continue good luck. I hope there's a 21st on the horizon. And I would be remiss if I didn't end this, and we'll go out on the music, okay, with Home on the Range. It is at the end of every concert. Everybody stands up and sings Home on the Range, and there's not a dry eye in the place, including me.
You know what? I can actually tell you a little story about Home on the Range. I just learned this within the last month. When this started, there were three people that we have to give credit for getting this going, like in that planning those first couple of years. And it's Emily Hunter Cannell and then Phil and Kathy Miller. If it weren't for those three, they are the ones that were really the boots on the ground that very first year. And what I learned was that Home on the Range was kind of an afterthought, as far as the symphony will play and then we'll end it with Home on the Range. And apparently there was a little bit of discussion between those three about, oh no, well, let's not do that. That seems a little cheesy, if you will. And one was very adamant about, no, this is the way we're going to do this. And there you go. And
yeah.
I can't imagine doing it any other way. And when that song plays and the cattle are in the background, there's just not a dry eye. It just, the emotion it evokes from everybody, unmatched.
Yeah, right. You'll forget about some of the music that was played, depending on the year you were there or whatever. You'll never forget that. That's the one thing that is,
right.
You just never forget that. Written by Dr. Brewster Higley, 1873. It was a poem to begin with, and then set the music by Daniel Kelly. And it was just phenomenal. And folks, there's just something about Kansas City. There's also just something about the Symphony in Flint Hills and the Flint Hills in the state of Kansas. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks for the education and continued good luck. And I have this strange inkling there will be more Symphony in the Flint Hills in one form or another as we move forward.
I'm not going to doubt you. I think that there will be something in the future. The board, like I said, the board is very dedicated to making sure that the organization lives on, and to making sure that the mission to heighten appreciation knowledge of the Flint Hills Tallgrass Prairie continues to grow.
And there's nothing like a home on the range. Thank you, Kelly.
No, there's nothing.
Home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. How often at night, when the heavens are bright with the light from the glittering stars, have I stood there amazed and asked as I gazed if their glory exceeds that of ours. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. The red man was pressed from this part of the West. 'Tis unlikely he'll ever return to the banks of Red River, where seldom, if ever, their flickering campfires burn. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is made possible by the generous support of local partners such as the Cockrell Family Foundation, the Bergman family, and the Sherman Family Foundation. For more information about how you can help us share these stories, visit our website at somethingaboutKC.org. Thank you.